if you tell your sister, listen, I'm looking at purchasing this property, please go see if it's a good property.
Seeing is different than managing the process.
There's so much to that purchase than just, that show house. Hi guys, welcome to another episode of the Roots Africa podcast. We are super excited to be back here for another episode around real estate investing.
And Irene is back. She was gone for the last episode that we posted.
Yeah.
So, you always make us look better. So, welcome back.
I mean, I feel like a small break is good.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Okay, so today we are talking about something very exciting.
Always.
I'm actually super excited about this one, and it's because in the conversations we've been having with our clients, we've noticed that people don't actually understand the purchase process very well. So we want to break it down.
Acquisition.
Yes.
Experience, yeah.
So we want to break it down for people so that they can understand it a bit better and make more informed decisions.
For sure. It's buying real estate is one of those, we always talk about it. It's one of those very emotional, intense, involving processes, right? Of almost anything you can buy. I don't think, I'm sure there are other more complicated things you can buy, but it's hard to think of even one thing in a person's personal life that is probably as
emotional.
Yeah, as intense.
Intense.
As involved.
Yeah. It doesn't help that
As
it's
complex.
also quite an expensive purchase. So I think it makes everything a bit,
There's a lot in that pot. Right?
Yes, exactly. Yeah, so we're going to break it down in terms of how people usually do it and then now explain how we do it.
Right. What the options are out there in terms of...
Yes.
Yeah, so you've worked with people in that process for 5 years, right? So something that you're very well familiar with and attuned to.
Yeah.
So we'll just, do a apples and oranges comparison. So excited about, the conversation.
Okay, so we'll start with the acquisition process, break it down into the main components. So we'll start with discovery, how people, discover properties in the first place.
Right. Yeah, and obviously diaspora audience, it's much more challenging than any other scenario.
Yeah.
Because most of the buyers are, by definition, not on the ground.
Yeah. So I think most people usually get these things online. There's a lot of content going on.
Right, a ton of content in the industry.
Can be confusing. I can imagine if I'm trying to buy a house with all that, content, it can be a lot. So many people are posting content. Developers are posting content. Agents are posting content. So I think that's how most people discover
right
properties.
How else would you, or through word of mouth or something of that nature, right? Or through friends and so on and so forth. So but the through line across all those experiences or all those modalities, whether it's through word of mouth or agent or a developer you've gone to directly, the fact is you're not on the ground. That's the reality.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Right? So you're depending on second, third hand information about this very complex, overwhelming experience you're about to get into, right? And so discovery is, what else do you, if you think about it, most of the things that we spend any appreciable amount of money on, most of the time we want to see it, touch it, feel it. Of course, people buy stuff online nowadays, but
that's something you have to feel.
Right. Especially a house. But anyway, so go ahead.
Do you want to talk about the challenges people, face in that discovery?
Yeah, I can just
phase?
imagine that. I mean, I bought property when I was living in the diaspora, but I sight unseen. But I was relying on my dad's what do I call it, recommendation and kind of his perspective. And there was a high level of trust there, obviously. But I remember I didn't know what I was buying. And even in that particular case, so discovery was was word of mouth or family or recommendation, right? The challenges that, so in that particular case, I guess a lot of the challenges that I would have gone through, actually, let me take a step. I actually bought a property from a developer. Now I remember this, actually. When I was in the diaspora, actually, I remember this. And Discovery was the developer, basically, was somebody who I went to school with. And they posted something in the school WhatsApp group. And at the time, I was starting to make this move to start to execute against my real estate goals, right? My whole thinking at the time was, look, it was 2014, and I had given myself a 10-year plan to put myself in a position where I could repatriate back home comfortably.
Yeah.
And in my mind, it was very clear. I was going to take the next 10 years, right, and invest in a property a year. Okay. I was going to extract as much money as I could from the U.S. economy, American system, and put it into property. And that would allow me to actually exit in my, that was my plan.
Yeah.
Okay. So I was thinking 10 properties. So I was like, man, at 10, you can't go wrong.
At least you
should be somewhere. You can't go that bad.
Yeah.
So when this former classmate put this announcement about a development that he was making, I was like, okay, I took note of it. It was kind of towards the end of the year. So I was like, yeah, I'll engage this in the new year. So, when the time came, I engaged him and kind of learned about what he was doing. He was getting into the development process and so on and so forth. And yeah, we went through the conversation. It was his first development. And my God, I remember just making the decision, like, yeah, somebody I trust, somebody who has a background in the industry. He's a former architect. He's done it before for himself. So plus I knew him. So the trust thing was, but I was so naive. Okay. Let me tell you, when I look back at that, I'm like, my God, I don't even know if I did a sales agreement.
You probably just signed.
And I don't even know what I signed. I don't know if I don't remember, because I've just gone through the process in the last month, right? Of purchasing another property. And this feels very different because I had a 26-page sales agreement that we had to go through with a fine-tooth comb with our legal staff. And I don't remember that experience. I don't remember a 26-page document. Go ahead.
I think that's how most people buy. Especially if you get hold of a developer you trust, say someone you've gone to school with, someone who's doing something amazing, people just sign.
Just sign.
Yeah.
So and there's so many things I'm looking back right now and thinking that could have gone wrong. That now, having gone through this much more professionalized, structured process, putting in a structure around it. What if the development wasn't finished? What was my recourse? When would I be paid back? When would I be paid back? How would I go? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Just looking back. So yeah, that was more of a
Gamble.
Honestly, when I think back, I think I just made the decision based on emotion and gut than any kind of structure.
Yeah.
So the discovery process was WhatsApp group message, right? And so it's, to your point, it's a developer, online message. That's how I came across my first real estate purchase back then. And yeah, we can talk about some of the other experiences I went through as a result of that. As I learned going through that process that they were just starting, so there were many things that were missing, not by design, but just by default. They just didn't know. They just needed to kind of make their process better.
Yeah.
So that's how I discovered that property in my particular case. In the absence of that trust relationship, again, it was my dad. So there's it's people and so I would just say that if you don't have those, what are you left with? I mean, what are your options, right? You find somebody online, a developer or an agent, and you choose to trust them and go through the process. And if you've never gone through it before, and you're not here on the ground, I
think
tough.
most people do that. I think that's
so you sold property to people like that, right? People who've reached out and you've just met through email or whatever.
And they're like, listen, Irene, I'm in that space. I feel like I need to start investing now. And they don't have so many options anyways because they're not around. So they end up trusting you.
They choose to trust you. And basically, the truth of the matter, you could tell them pretty much almost anything, right? Depending on how, right? So,
unfortunately.
So maybe talk a little bit about that, right? So what are the risks associated with, because you choose to trust somebody you've never met. You're going through a process you probably haven't gone through before. So you don't even have a benchmark, right?
Yeah.
You really don't know how to compare, to check what they're telling you or what you're going through.
Yeah.
Right? So what are some of the risks with that process?
So as we mentioned, there are two ways you can get this information. You can either get it from a developer or from an agent or maybe liaise with family and friends. First of all, developers are pushing their products.
Bottom line.
If my product is in Westlands, I will tell you why Westlands is the best place to buy.
If it's in Syokimau, I'm telling you, this is
I will tell you, listen,
the heartland
everyone is going to Kilimani. Stop going to Kilimani because that sells for me.
Right.
Right.
So I'll tell you what I need to say.
Yeah.
To convince you to sell my property, fundamentally.
And to be honest, they're trying to also push the inventory, so they will do what they have to do. Right. Agents are everywhere nowadays. Everyone is posting a property. Do they understand where you're going? Do they understand why you're buying? Do they even understand the market sometimes? Maybe no. Right.
And Nairobi is full of shingle hanger. People hang shingles on their doors and say, I'm a this, I'm a that. Yeah. So whatever's hot, people will gravitate towards. It doesn't mean that they'll have depth of experience. So majority of property agents are not going to be that top tier, high quality professional. Those are there, right? And there are some pretty excellent ones. But they're the minority in number because we live in a city where people are side hustlers and, burning the candle on both hands and just... that's the nature of our culture in a lot of ways, right? So we just gotta call a spade. And if you're fishing in a pond and most of the fish are of a certain type, you're likely gonna catch a fish that is of that type, and it may not be the one that's.
It's very hard to actually know who is the good agent and who is just trying out.
Let me tell you,
it's so hard.
you pretty much
posting,
And the thing is, if you've never been through it before, how are you going to know? And people are good. Nairobians Kenyans are really good talkers, right?
Yeah.
So it's one of those things, even when I think about it, I'm like, what? Jesus Christ. There's a lot of risk here. Yes. There's a lot of risk. Yes. You're more than likely going to end up in a risky situation just based on those two options. Now, if you go to the family thing, man, family are not professionals. This is not their industry. They are busy living their life. Now you're telling them to come and go into an industry most of them are not familiar with. Your expectation that this should actually play out well is not realistic. It's being unfair. It's being unfair. But they care about you. They're trying to make it work. And as they start going through the process, it becomes clearly challenging. And that's how I think things go wrong. Everybody begins with good intentions. But as you go through the process, it becomes difficult. Now it's like, man, listen, how much am I making from this? Your family member begins to ask. So
no, I think sometimes it's even from a good place. If you tell your sister, listen, I'm looking at purchasing this property, please go see if it's a good property. I want my sister to purchase.
Sure. Seeing is different than managing the process.
There's so much to that purchase than just, that show house. And
especially the show house. My God. The show house will always be the most brilliant thing they could create, right? Because they're trying to, And if you're not experienced, you wouldn't even know what to ask or what to look out for or who.
Exactly.
Developer due diligence, right? So.
She's not an expert at that. So if she sees the show house, it's, beautiful, she'll tell you that.
Of course. Right.
Yeah, it's nice. Designed. I've seen it. Please buy. It happens all the time.
And those show houses they're designed to make you feel
exactly
like to convince you fundamentally. So discovery is one of those things where it's those are your options pretty much. Word of mouth, going directly online to an agent, or
recommendations from family and friends,
or directly to the developer. But all of them have their own risks associated with them. The main one also being developer due diligence, right?
Yeah.
Okay. If I'm trying to sell your property I'm always going to accentuate the best, and I'm always going to represent myself in as, you know what I'm saying, a certain way.
Yeah.
But you've never gone through this. I was just looking at our due diligence framework before I came online, and I was just like, holy shit, there's 17 different regulatory kind of certifications you need to get into a development process.
Yes.
Okay, 17. And I was like, wow, okay. Do most people even know that? No. So are you going to ask the developer to provide that? Do they provide those?
They don't provide that unless you ask.
Right. So, I mean, it's difficult.
Yeah. So the discovery part is, I think, where most mistakes are done.
Totally.
Because
once you decide to trust the wrong
people, you're done.
You're done. Right?
Done.
You're done. And so, okay. Next one. What's the next part?
So
of the
next one is unit selection. Not all units are the same.
Not all units are the same, for sure. And I've just learned that going through the process myself recently. But you can talk about why that's true.
Unit selection is a very important aspect of purchase, because you have to pick the right unit. There are very many things you need to consider: natural lighting, views, floors, especially if you're looking at this from an investment perspective. And even if you want this as a home, it's important that you consider these things when choosing the unit. Nowadays, developments are coming up everywhere.
Left and right.
You do not have control of who buys land next to you, right? So if you pick a unit that is right next to the other person's parcel of land and another developer comes and buys, don't blame anyone if you're looking at someone's balcony as your view.
Right. Yeah. Real estate is location.
Yeah.
And when it comes to it's still location, whether it's an apartment and a high rise, it's still location. You know, what are you looking at on the outside? Where is it in the complex itself?
Yeah.
There are different quality of options in terms of view and just accessibility and in any building, right? Yeah. So not being able to actually be there to select
is
buying blindly, fundamentally.
And developers have to push the inventory. If the good units have been bought, guess what? These other units have to go as well. So I will sell them to someone.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And they'll be the best units in the building at that point in time.
Yeah. When I'm telling you, I'll be like, listen, this is actually not a bad view. You can go for it.
Right. And you mentioned something when we were talking about this earlier, that you've noticed that ground floor apartments typically don't rent.
Yeah.
I mean, we haven't done any hardcore research on this, which we probably should. But just from your observation, right? And so that's a curious...
People love views.
Right.
People love views. It's more silent. It's more private at the top. So everyone would want to, live
see
on the
house. See the city in front
of them. No one wants to look at the compound as their view. And the cars.
Right.
Right? So you want something beautiful when you get home.
Right. Yeah.
So,
and even if it's Airbnb or if you're renting it out, when I, as somebody who rents, the higher the floor, typically the better, generally speaking, because Nairobi we are going into this new type of experiences where we can see our city from above. Never used to be that way even 10 years ago, right? Yeah. And so there's a new vector or a new perspective in terms of, holy cow, I would like to actually be... And that's why I keep saying Nairobi is on a path to becoming the New York, NYC of this region, very much, if you look at all that's happening in this city of ours. So people have a different expectation in terms of what a good the level of the unit where it is on the building.
And funny enough, if you have a unit on a higher floor, it gets more demand.
Facts.
So if you're also looking at it from an investment perspective, then you need to consider things like that.
Right.
Some people even charge more just because they have units on higher floors.
Yes, I can attest to that. As somebody I was looking for property to rent in around where our offices is in Westlands, and it's a fact. The higher you are, the higher the demand. It's priced definitely differently, for sure.
Okay. So the other component is now the legal representation part.
Oof, the legal process. Yeah. Like I was talking about at the beginning. 26 pages sales agreement.
Yeah.
Intimidating document for sure, right? And it defines everything fundamentally.
It defines everything.
Right.
Especially for people who look at off-plan purchases, because it protects your needs as a purchaser.
Right.
It literally dictates what happens if the developer does not deliver or deliver on time. So that's a very important document.
The handover process, everything is defined in that, right?
Imagine.
So it's where the rubber meets the road, right?
Yep.
So it's so important to get that in front of a professional, right, who can really help you, at the end of the day, look out for your interests, because the sales agreement is usually provided to you by the developer.
Yeah.
So they're always going to do the sales agreement to favor their position, right?
Yeah.
And we just went through this, like I've talked about, and it's going through something really, is there's nothing like it. It's not secondhand information. And we went, what was the back and forth between our legal and their legal? In fact, if you remember, it took us, they were not going to surface their legal just like that.
No.
Right?
No.
So we had to insist and say, there's no way we're going to send you money.
Yeah. Yeah.
Even if for a deposit, if we cannot have comfort that the terms here we're comfortable with, right? And so we were like, no. We held our ground, and they had to surface their legal, which was an outside law firm, and who were very friendly and very worked with us very well. So net of it, what was that process back and forth? How many days? Was it a couple of weeks or something or more?
Yeah, it was a few weeks. Yeah, because we needed to make sure that we agree on the fundamental, clauses that protect you as a purchaser.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, and there were, I wish I took the number, but I would want to say there were over 10, at least 10 adjustments, if not more, in the agreement they send us, that we had to.
The number of people who actually don't, know about that or don't take consideration of the sales agreement are many. That's why they give you first and see if you ask for the legal.
They give you what first? Say that again?
The documents. Yeah, and see if you'll have adjustments to make. Because some people just sign.
Right. Yeah, because, you don't even know what to look for, right?
Right? So many legal terms. Those legal terms that only lawyers would understand. Yeah.
Yeah, but, they're written like that for a reason.
Right.
So that you just sign. But, it's a couple of things that are, for example, right? Let's say the developer doesn't finish the development. What's your recourse, right? How is the situation remedied?
Yes.
Things like that. Those are all defined in the document. What if they are delayed? Okay, what happens, right?
Yeah.
So many things that there was just so many things that we had to kind of go back and forth on and to red line and to kind of agree on, and we finally got it to where we felt good about the process. But if somebody, I can't imagine. I can't imagine.
It's a lot of risk.
It's a lot of risk. It's a lot of risk, and people need to be aware, and they need the support. They just need to have their eyes wide open when they're going into this process. Yeah.
Okay. Then the other component is construction progress updates.
Yeah. People sign documents and everything goes into a black hole, and you don't know what's happening.
Yeah.
You don't know.
Imagine, and you're somewhere out there. You've paid the money. No one is sending you progress updates. You don't know what's happening, and now you don't know what to do.
Yeah.
Now you have to disturb your friends and family to go check.
Whether this thing is
Before you make
real.
a payment, they have to go check, and now they know now you have money.
Wow. Yeah, that's crazy. And we're talking about this offline, and I was like, okay, why is that the case? Why is it that developers tend not to generally be? Why don't they communicate as effectively as they should to their buyers, right?
Okay, not all developers do that. Some developers actually do share these progress reports. But some don't. So if you end up dealing with someone who doesn't, it can be very frustrating.
It's a nightmare. It's a nightmare,
Yeah.
right? It's a nightmare. And the truth of the matter is their whole business process is not designed for somebody who's buying from far away.
Yeah. I think that's what we were talking about.
Right.
I think they just assume if you want to come see the progress, you will come.
You'll come. They're mostly marketing to local. All developers tend to kind of market to people who will walk in and make a purchase.
Yeah.
So the assumption is, come by, man. I'm sure you'll drive by and look at updates, right?
I mean, if you're paying all this money, I'm assuming you will create time to come see the development. But for purchasers who are not around, who are in the diaspora, that can be
that's
a lot.
that's not realistic. That you'll drive by over the weekend and check progress updates. So so their whole process is not designed for that level of communication, right? In terms of, okay, I need to take videos, I need to take photos on a regular cadence, and I need to provide that communication in a way that gives somebody the full picture. It's just not part of how they're designed to work, right? Developers. And let's not even talk about agents, right? Once an agent sells your property, on to the next one, on to the next one. They've got their commission already, so they're on to the next one. I mean, aligned. This is it's very clear. Like, you look at all these players, nobody's aligned with your interests. Okay. What's the next one? What's the next part of the process?
The next one is the handover process.
The handover process, yeah. So now
the unit is ready. There are a few things that can protect you in the sales agreement. What happens if your unit is leaking? What happens if your unit has a problem? I think for the first 6 months or 12 months, developers are supposed to, do something about it. But if you don't know, you might end up making those repairs, which you're not supposed to be doing.
Forget about making repairs. You might end up you don't even know you've got these problems.
Imagine.
Right?
Especially if you're not around.
Right. And those 12 months can go and lapse, and okay, now the developer is off the hook, and you're not there to actually inspect the property when they're handing it over to you. So now it's like, man,
and
what a
some of
nightmare.
these things don't happen immediately. Some would happen after, say, 3 months.
Right. Leaky roofs, right?
You could send a family member to check out the unit when it's ready, but then
you have to live in the unit.
Who will tell you after 3 months that the unit is leaking? Right.
And then that process is challenging. Finally, it's really about once you have the unit, right? You got to do something with it, right? You have to, hopefully, depending if you, a lot of people we talk to are like, I would like to have a place that I can come. If I'm in town, I can stay, but when I'm not, I can rent it out in some way, shape, or form, right? And that doesn't happen also just automatically, right? The property management piece, right? So it's not a trivial thing, right? It's how do you go about listing it? Vetting tenants, right? How do you go about writing a rental agreement? All these things, right? How do you go about showing the property to tenants? It's just, again, family, right? Or is it your agent who's going to do that for you? So this whole process it's very involving, right? And it's fraught with risk. Even if you're here on the ground, it's challenging. Now when you're there, it's just multiplied.
It can be a lot.
And that's why.
And that's why we're talking about transaction management today. Guys, you don't have to go through this process on your own. We have a solution that is tailored for guys in the diaspora that really just helps you handle this process with the knowledge and the information you need, just to make it easy for you.
It's just, we've designed a solution that, like I always talk about, I would have wanted, high trust, transparent, clear, turnkey, single, what do you call it? One throat to choke, so to speak, or single point of not single point of failure, but one partner who has everything under one roof. And it's alignment at the end of the day, right? We're not developers, so we don't care about selling any one property. We're always, the interests of the buyer are why we're in business and how we're in business, right? So we are not married to any one development that we gotta get off our books. we are not like in a hurry to kind of, do a transaction and move on to the next one, right? The way we think about this is your success is our success, because if you work with us in one property, you probably buy another unit. And really it's about the way we think about the whole philosophy around how we think about how we've designed everything we do is, oh my God, over time, we will do more business with people because we are thinking about a bigger picture, helping people leverage the real estate opportunity to achieve their goals. And we start there, right? And so our whole philosophy, business model is designed around the investor at the center and building from there backwards. So super aligned. And that's a fantastic place to be. Never any tension, never any reason to do anything other than what's in the interest of our clients, fundamentally, right? And being completely transparent with our process and getting to the truth, right? And that's just an exciting place to be. So maybe we can talk a little bit about how we structured our entire transaction management offering to solve all those challenges that we've highlighted, right? So the first thing we talked about, discovery. How do we think about discovery, or why Roots Africa when it comes to discovery? What's the advantage of Roots Africa?
So first of all, we source the property for you and do due diligence on your behalf. We are handpicking developers. We don't just work with any developer. There's so many developers doing developments right now. So we have a very thorough due diligence framework that they have to meet to make sure that we recommend their properties to our clients. Right. So as Mark mentioned, we are very keen on where the client is. We really assess your needs for investment, what your targets are, what your goals are.
What you can afford, what will work for you.
Exactly. And then recommend something that is,
aligned
convenient,
with your
aligned with you. So it's very important that we give you the right property with the right developer.
Of course, So discovery is really, we start there. We start from the investor and say, what are you interested in? And then now we go and source, or we kind of have it in our inventory and say, because we have inventory that we have already due diligenced, and then we just it's a mapping, right? And we're having this conversation in that guise. So discovery, where your eyes and ears. We you talked about unit. Right, unit selection, for example. Right. My goodness, because we are your eyes and ears. We are not going to
let you select about unit.
No way, right? Because we're also thinking about it down the road. Let's say you pick us as your property manager. We want this to be easy to rent, right? Exactly. Fundamentally, and so and we are really about this idea of. Part of our KPIs are really around testimonials, feedback, and referrals. Because we know that's how we will grow based on reputation and customer satisfaction. Customer satisfaction being number one. So to us, every purchase is personal in a way. Like it's what we would buy. It's what we would invest in, right? And that's because we don't have any one development to push. You know what I mean? The market
that's the thing. We are not developers, so we can work with any developer that we believe does a good job, does a quality job, and meets our criteria. So
So the whole city is our market in a way, right? So even unit selection can jump from building to building, developer to developer, and we just, you know what I'm saying? There's much more to choose from. So just from an alignment perspective, that's a big deal.
I think our main consideration is usually the client. Just, will this fit the needs of a client?
Right.
And picking the right unit is very important, which we obviously do for our clients and give recommendations. I usually advise my clients that buy a unit that you could easily sell in case you want to sell.
Right.
Because some people are looking at this.
Unit,
Yes. Life is life. One day you might decide, you know what, I want to get very liquid and I want to sell my unit, right?
Right.
So purchase a unit that will be very
attractive
easy
for all reasons, right? Whether it's renting it, Airbnb, or resell. Right.
Exactly.
So fantastic, awesome. the other, so that's the first part of our transaction management, right? We're your eyes and ears and advocates on the ground, right? So next part of that process.
Legal representation.
The big one, right? We have that on platform, right?
Yes.
And we know what the template is, right? Because all sales agreements are just going to be generally, we're familiar with them. And so we can actually, they're all not going to be the same because there are all kinds of different scenarios and all that. But we have that service on staff, right? You don't have to go and get a third party.
Right? Yeah, we have an in-house legal department that just takes care of all the legal requirements on behalf of our clients here.
Right.
Local advocacy.
Right, negotiating prices.
Yes.
Negotiating unit.
Yes.
Just being your eyes at regular updates, making sure those are, on time and meeting expectation, meeting standard, right? Because at the end of the day, we want you to sleep well at night, right? Okay, so that local advocacy matters, right? If anything happens in the process, we can be on site. We can, so that's part of our service offering. Yeah.
And this covers the handover process as well.
Right.
So we'll be able to do regular checkups for the unit once it's ready, just to make sure that, it's meeting the standards, it's okay, it's what we bought.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and then after that, you want to start making money with this unit, hopefully, right? There's a whole, how do I turn this unit into revenue, right? How do I turn this unit into cash flow? That's about listing it, property management piece of that. So that's a secondary thing. It's not part of our transaction management. Transaction management ends at the handover process. But there's also this other offering we have, right? We'll just give a nod to that because we've thought this through end to end. Property management, is part of something you need to be thinking about. So even though it's not part of our transaction management offering, it's next door, right? So we can definitely provide you a pass-through kind of like well-designed kind of like, okay, I've purchased a property. I need to kind of,
think about that next
step. Yeah.
Okay. Progress reporting.
Yeah, I mean, part of the advocacy, I guess, right? So it's ongoing progress reports. That's part of our advocacy offering. It's basically, essentially, we are, like, the best way I can say it is your eyes and ears on the ground. Yes. Right? Yes. Where your eyes, ears, and brain, because the legal thing needs some brain power and some and all that. But so that's transaction management as far as Roots Africa is concerned.
And the most exciting product, the platform.
Oh, yes. Yes. I take this for granted. But
you can't afford to.
In my mind, I'm just like, this is, we're a tech-first company.
Yeah.
So, maybe you talk about why you think this matters.
Yes. So, guys, we are building a very beautiful product that allows you to track the whole process from the comfort of your home. So, Mark assumes everyone is a tech guru in Kenya, but most developers actually don't know anyone who does that.
Yeah,
so we do this using technology. You're able to track the whole process on your laptop. And for the guys I've been talking to about the whole process, get very excited because it just makes everything easy and convenient and just easy to visualize for you. So,
and let's just talk about some of the features on there. It's like, we're basically creating a new technology category here in a sense, especially for our market. So if you can imagine, if it's a buying off plan process where you're buying a property over time, there's a timeline associated with that experience. So we have designed like a timeline on the platform. There are different stages of payments and milestones in terms of the development. Or we're also designing kind of updates into that platform as well, into that view. The other piece too is also the document management, like basically the what do you call it? Like the legal documentation that goes, sales agreements and all this stuff,
the
right?
title deeds,
all that stuff. So typically, those would be in somebody's email or in their WhatsApp. It's all over the place, making your life, throwing you all over the place. And so everything in a centralized hub, right, with the documents attached to the property and all that. So super excited about what this can become. I'm sure we'll get feedback from the market, and we will make changes. But that's what we do, right? The work we do at Impact Africa, at our mother company, we build technology products. We're totally comfortable in that process. You start with a hypothesis of what you think might be. We do some market research, get feedback from potential clients, and then we build, and then we put it out there, and then we see how people respond, and then we adjust according to those responses. So I'm sure what we envision today is probably 10%, if that, of what this will end up being. Really excited about all that. So Roots Africa platform, look out for that. It will just, the idea
blow
is
your mind.
Yeah, man, let's make this process less fraught with anxiety and all those challenges that go to it. So
that's it from us. Thank you for listening, guys. I hope you learned something from this podcast, and see you on the next one. Bye.